dear members of the media, welcome to the press conference following the meeting between the President of Latvia and Cyprus. We'll start with the statement of our host, President Goch. Good afternoon, dear members of the media. Very happy to see you all here today. I was also very happy to welcome today my good dear friend, former colleague since my times as the Foreign Minister, Nikos, in Latvia. I should say that this is the first official visit of the Cyprus President to Latvia, President of Cyprus to Latvia, so it is a historic visit. I was happy to discuss our bilateral relations and cooperation within the EU today with my colleague, and we also discussed broader security issues. Both of our countries are very close to the epicenter of military conflicts. We are closer to Ukraine, and Cyprus has, of course, been directly affected by what is happening in Middle East. I would like to also underline that as far as our bilateral relations are concerned, beyond doubt, we share a very close political dialogue at the bilateral and European Union level as European Union member states. We also discussed the fact that Cyprus will be the presiding country of the Council of the EU next year, and Cyprus will play a major role in deciding, shaping the next MFF, multi-annual financial framework of the European Union, and I emphasized our priorities within this respect. It is defense and security, of course, cohesion policy, and agricultural policy and transport connections. So these are our priorities for the presidency or for the EU's MFF. Since we are like-minded countries, I do believe that we will be perfectly capable of working on different budget issues with the Cyprus presidency and also resolve other issues that are linked to the development of the European Union. I do suppose that this cooperation will be rather constructive. I also voiced my firm support and hope that Cyprus will join Schengen area. We fully support the membership of Cyprus in the Schengen area. We do believe and are absolutely confident that it will only help promote tourism between our countries and economic ties between our countries. And in this regard, I can only say that from our side, we're ready to provide all necessary political and other support for this in the European Union when it comes to Cyprus joining Schengen area. We, of course, discussed also regional situation. We expressed our position, our national position regarding developments in Ukraine. I should also say that Latvia highly appreciates the position of Cyprus with regard to support to Ukraine, which is currently fending off the aggressor. Cyprus within the EU and also on bilateral level has provided all kinds of comprehensive support to Ukraine, and we also discussed, and I do believe that I can speak on behalf of both of us, that we're unanimous that we need to continue providing comprehensive support to Ukraine. I also underlined that it is important to extend sanctions against Russia. Sanctions policy need to be continued, and we are especially interested in maintaining sanctions with regard to Russian shadow fleet, so-called shadow fleet. Considering what has been happening in the Baltic Sea, various incidents that have occurred with regard to maritime infrastructure, and also because this shadow fleet, in fact, is part of the Russian war machine. Equally important topic is situation is Middle East, the escalation of relations between Iran and Israel, and I presented the national position of Latvia. We do firmly believe that Iran should be allowed to develop nuclear weapons. In this regard, we are fully behind the common position of the European Union. We also strongly believe that European Union must continue applying sanctions or pressure against Iran. Beyond any doubt, what is happening in Middle East, the escalation of this conflict or these tensions are quite worrying, and what we can see is that in fact security is very much linked to what is happening there, and any escalation will sooner rather than later affect all of us. And Mr. President also informed me about the sentiments in Cyprus, which is, well, immediately next to this region. I will probably steal what my colleague Nikos was saying to me, but in fact what we are seeing is that from Cyprus you can actually see the Iran rockets flying to Israel, which only demonstrates how close, in fact, this conflict is to the European Union borders, and how close it is actually to our borders, because all borders of the EU are our borders, our common border. And from Latvia's point of view, we should find ways to de-escalate this situation. With this, I would like to say that we have indeed had a very constructive exchange today, and Mr. President will continue with other meetings with Prime Minister, and we'll also have an afternoon meeting. We'll discuss many other issues that are shared by our countries. Thank you.
It is a great pleasure to be in Riga today, actually returning back. I was here in 2021 as a Minister of Foreign Affairs in this first ever official visit to Latvia by the President of the Republic of Cyprus, and my first stop at the Baltics ahead of the Cyprus presidency of the Council of the European Union, the first half of 2026. Thank you, Mr. President, dear Edgars, for the invitation and warm hospitality extended to me and my delegation, and for the excellent discussion. With President Rikevich, we go way back to our time as Ministers of Foreign Affairs. Dear friends, Cyprus and Latvia share more than meets the eye. We are two small countries, member states of the European Union, at the frontiers of the European Union's external border. Two member states that have endured foreign occupation, and in the case of Cyprus, a member state that continues, unfortunately, to endure the consequences of aggression, Turkish invasion, and continuing occupation of European territory. And so, our countries, dear Edgar, have always raised their voice unequivocally in support of international order based on full respect of international law, democracy, and rule of law, upholding human rights and fundamental freedoms and placing them at the front of our foreign policies. And it is these, I will say, shared values and convictions that drove our aspirations to join the European Union, a union of values, a space of security and prosperity, and we both maintain that a stronger union renders each and every member state stronger. And so, today we reaffirm our steadfast commitment to these common values. We agreed to work even closer in the years ahead, especially as both Latvia and Cyprus will be taking the helm in international fora soon. I take this opportunity to congratulate Latvia's historic election, because it is a historic, to the United Nations Security Council for 26-27. Latvia will take its seat in January at the time that the Security Council customarily starts the deliberations of the renewal of the mandate of the United Nations peacekeeping force in Cyprus. We count on your support, and I thank you, dear friend, for reaffirming today Latvia's long-standing steadfast support on reunifying Cyprus, the last divided member state, fully in line with international and European Union law. In this regard, I had also today the opportunity to debrief the President in our efforts to resume negotiations and solve the Cyprus problem based on the UN Security Council resolution and the EU values and principles. With Edgars, we also exchange views on foreign policy and defense issues, certainly the alarming escalation in Cyprus and European Union's immediate region, and other core issues pertaining our European Union agenda. We reaffirm, of course, our steadfast commitment for the continued support to Ukraine, as well as enhancing the European Union's strategic autonomy and competitiveness, and effectively addressing the instrumentalization of migration. Migration was another issue that we discussed today. Also, ahead of the assumption of the presidency of the European Union, I assure the President that Cyprus will act as an honest broker so as to uphold European Union unity. And I'm particularly pleased that Cyprus and Latvia see eye to eye and share the same vision and priorities on the key issues on our common European Union agenda. Last, but certainly not least, with the President, we had the opportunity to review our bilateral relations. Our ties are strong, and so are the prospects and opportunities for a further enhanced multifaceted cooperation in many sectors, such as tourism. In fact, we have witnessed a major increase of both Latvians visiting Cyprus and Cypriots coming here. Significant potential is also present for our bilateral defense cooperation and enhancing best practices on issues like innovation and energy. We agree that we will tap into this potential with the aim to bring our people and our businesses closer, and I'm very encouraged by the establishment of a business association just last year, which is indicative of our mutual willingness to work in this direction. Dear Edgars, once again, thank you very much for the invitation, for the warm welcome. Allow me to take this opportunity to publicly extend an invitation to visit Cyprus at your earliest convenience so as to continue our discussions. Thank you very much.
Paldies. Thank you, and now we open the floor for questions. I would like to give the floor to Ines Strasdiņa from the Latvian television. Thank you. Good afternoon, Ines Strasdiņa from the Latvian television. I have a question to both presidents. First of all, to President Rinkiewicz, the first question. You mentioned that you discussed with your Cypriot colleague support to Ukraine and sanctions against Russia. Shadow fleet is one of the issues that has been also affecting Cyprus as well. Did you discuss any specifics, any details of the potential cooperation? What are you expecting from Cyprus? What kind of response or reaction? And second question about Middle East and the emerging conflict there. What, according to you, would be the solutions that could be applied currently, taking into account that this escalation will, of course, also affect war in Ukraine, because these conflicts are in a way linked. And to the President of Cyprus, a question about Shadow Fleet and sanctions against Russia. From your point of view, what could you do in practical terms to strengthen sanctions against Russia and discontinue the operations of the Shadow Fleet in the Cypriot waters? And about conflict in the Middle East, I know that there are a lot of asylum seekers from Israel, so you also see those rockets flying towards Israel. You're so close, and what would be the most efficient solution there, according to you, to avoid any further escalation? Yes, in my introductory remarks, I already mentioned that we should continue to consistently apply sanctions against Russia, especially its Shadow Fleet. I should also underline that. Well, we first of all see the sanctions policy as a European Union policy. And lately, we've been seeing that the number of those vessels or ships that are subject to sanctions has been increasing. In the beginning of the year, we were talking about 100 plus ships. Now, according to the data that I have, we have 342 vessels under sanctions, and now as we are preparing the 13th sanction package, Latvia has also proposed additional vessels to be included in this list, and there could be roughly some 70 vessels that could be included in the sanctioned list, and our partners in the EU have been very supportive of our proposal, and we hope that this is the first step. I mean, towards the adoption of the sanctions package, and I hope that other EU member states will agree to this proposal in the process of coordination. Now, as regards to other support to Ukraine, on top of sanctions against Russia, which is, of course, instrumental, we also talked about the necessity to continue to support EU-Ukraine financial program and also other areas. And in this regard, I would say that our friends in Cyprus and our partners in Cyprus are on the same page with us when it comes to EU support policy to Ukraine and necessity to continue the sanctions pressure on Russia. Now, as regards to Middle East, I think we are currently in the sort of hot phase of the conflict, and we discussed with my colleague what is happening there, and in Israel, I mean, the Iranian strikes against Israel and Israel trying to destroy the Iranian nuclear infrastructure. This is the hot phase, as we agreed, and in this hot phase, we need to, or active phase, we need to focus on measures that can at least somehow de-escalate the situation, at least slightly. But let's be realistic, it will probably not happen in the coming days. What we would like to see, what Latvia would like to see is a clearer and more visible involvement of the EU diplomats or diplomatic corps. But as I already mentioned, we are very fully aware that Iran, armed with nuclear weapons, is a threat to the whole region and the world. So there's no doubt that Iran should completely discontinue its nuclear program, abandon its nuclear program. Such phasing out should be also verifiable, and I don't have a glass ball to say when that will happen, but nevertheless what we are seeing is that the Iranian armed forces are damaged seriously. On the other hand, air defense system which doesn't work in Iran, that's one thing, but Iran's ability to continue drone attacks and ballistic rocket attacks are still significant, and there are a lot of civilians continuously dying in Israel, and we just witnessed the evacuation of Latvian nationals. That was one of the issues, by the way, that we discussed. Cyprus, by the way, is one of those evacuation routes or points that can be used. Our people were evacuated through Jordan, but I would like to praise Cyprus for taking a very active role in helping those who are fleeing currently the conflict area. And in coming days, I don't think that we'll be able to quell this hot phase of the conflict, and diplomats will have to continue working, as they always do, of course. But the question about Iranian nuclear weapons and aggressive foreign policy is the top priority that we need to focus on at the moment. But then there are also other related issues. How, for example, are we going to de-escalate the situation? And we need to work with the Israeli side, of course.
Cyprus knows very well about invasion, occupation, violation of the sovereignty and territorial integrity, violation of international law, of human rights. So, in the case of Ukraine, from the very beginning we were in the right side of the history, and will continue to be in the right side of the history, fully supporting Ukraine's independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity. Sanctions is a very important tool of the European Union, and that is why we are supporting the sanctions policy of the European Union. But our sanctions can be much more effective if all member states, and especially countries that they aspire to join the European Union, fully align with this policy. And especially in this aspect, full alignment with the sanctions policy of the European Union from the accession country. If we can achieve this, I think we'll be much more effective. Now on the issue of the Middle East, Cyprus is a member state of the European Union. At the same time, we are part of the Middle East. We are working always on a positive agenda with all countries of the region. We have excellent relations. We are not part of the problem. We are working in order to be part of the solution, and we support the efforts of the international community in order to reach a ceasefire. We don't believe that the war is the solution in this very difficult situation. Especially with the European Union, we would like to see much more active involvement of the European Union in the region. At the end of the day, the Middle East is our neighborhood. We need to do something. We need to have a leading role. It was in this aspect that we're talking with all countries of the region. And at the same time, we asked for an extraordinary Foreign Affairs Council that took place 2 days ago in order to show in action that as a European Union, we're really interested about the situation in the region. So, as a representative of the European Union in the Middle East, we're joining the efforts of the international community in order to reach a ceasefire. Thank you.
Thank you. We would like to thank the presidents and mass media.